Patience Little has ran away from home, and we find out that this is not her real name. So she has left home, and now she's working in this elder care facility. She struck up a friendship with this lady called Enid Kennedy, and they're good friends to the point where Enid will give her her card to buy her little knickknacks because she hardly ever leaves her room and she doesn't get to leave the facility. So they're pretty close, and she calls her Ladybug. So it's a cute little nickname, but Edith has a plan to leave the facility because she doesn't like it there and she wants to go back home. Now, she knows that she has a daughter named Cleo and a son named, what's his name? Jude, which we find out a little bit later. And she doesn't really get along with either of them. Cleo comes to visit occasionally, but they don't really get along. But we find out that she feels like they're taking her stuff away from her, and she has a little bit left, and she decides that she's not going to let either of them have it. So she found some attorney in the paper, and she decides that she's going to change her power of attorney, and she wanted to leave everything to Patience. Now, she felt like she wanted to get her house back, and the attorneys felt like maybe there would be a possibility to be able to get her house back. I don't know what the state of the house was at that point, but she wanted to get her house back. So that's one of the things that she was working on. Also, she was making a plan to escape from the facility, which, Patience was going to help her with that. Now, we find out that there's a connection between her and Patience because when Patience ran away from home, her mom had like a little tin that she kept her emergency money, but in there was a card for this gallery, and the gallery belongs to Jude. Now, the reason that Patience ran away from home was because her mom was supposed to tell her who her real mom was by a certain age, and when that time came, her mom said she couldn't do it. And so she got upset with her mom and she left. So because this card was in the tin, she thought maybe this guy was her dad. And so when she went to the gallery, the guy was like, oh no, I don't even sleep with women. So she was distraught, and so he felt bad for her. And he told her that she could stay in the attic of the gallery, but she couldn't have anybody there. She has to be quiet. I think there was one other condition. And so after a while now, he found her a job to work at this nursing home where his mom is staying, who his mom is Edith. We find out later that a part of the agreement was that there's certain information that she had to report back. So I'm not quite sure exactly what it was that he had to report back, and I'm sure there was probably some conflict with that because she liked Edith and she cared about her a lot. So, what kind of details would her son want her to report back, especially about somebody that she really likes? So, on the day at the beginning of the book, on that day that, she had gone to her room, she wanted her to get something for her. So she had her card. And so the care manager busted in the room, and at that point, she had the card and was accusing her of stealing and asked her to empty her pockets. Of course, she had the card. They're not supposed to have that type of relationship with the residents there, and so she fired her. And so, yeah, she was kind of distraught about that. On that same day as well, that care manager ended up, dead. And so Patience is pulled into this murder because she was fired for theft. Maybe she got angry about being fired and did that. On that same day as well, Edith's daughter, Cleo, was there and she got into an argument with the care manager because she was really rude to her about an outstanding invoice for Edith. And she told her, like, listen, we're going to have a problem if you keep my mom out. And so somebody overheard that. And so after she died, that came to the police. So she was also a suspect. So when that happened, we find out that Patience also ended up, because it was their plan for them to escape, she also broke Edith out of the facility and brought her back to the attic where she stays. Now, I'm wondering if at that point, if she knew that Edith was Jude's mom. But anyway, when at that point in the book, I didn't think that she knew, but I don't know. Did she know? So she was, she brought her back to the attic, but she's not supposed to have guests there. So, she might get in trouble. At one point when Edith was there, Jude had came knocking on the door and she didn't answer. So eventually, now this lady is in her 80s, and eventually she remembered what this place was because this gallery was in their family. And she was mad at Patience because she felt like she had betrayed her. She doesn't really get along with her son, and she felt like maybe her and her son were working together because, her son was kind of pretty much trying to get whatever it is that he could get from her. He couldn't wait for her to die. Basically is how she felt about her son. Plus, they didn't really have a relationship either. So she got mad and stuff, and so she told Patience that she was going to go for a walk, and they had this little dog. I think it was her dog that her son had gotten rid of, and so Patience ended up getting the dog back for her. And she didn't really have any intentions of making up with Patience, but she said that to pacify her, so she went for a walk. While she went for the walk, she decides that they have to get out of here, so she's packing. She had a little stash of money that she was saving up, and so she's pulling all her little things together. She didn't really have a whole lot in the attic, her art and little things that she had there. So while she was doing that, the police came, and so she tried to get away, but yeah, she ended up getting arrested. So they felt like she was involved in that murder. Now, she had gotten a text, and we didn't know who it was from, telling her not to say anything, and if she did say anything, that person wasn't going to help her. So she couldn't say anything. So during the interrogation, although she was told not to say anything, she answered a couple questions, but ultimately most of the questions she didn't answer. So she ended up getting taken to this women's prison, and funny enough, that is the prison that her mom works at. Her mom, who she's been living with, not her birth mom, works at the prison library. Now, she also had sent a text to her mom Frankie, to help her, but she didn't get a chance to tell her any details. So her mom doesn't know where she is, and she's trying to find her. She wants to find her daughter. She wants to make up. She wants to keep her safe, but she doesn't know where she is. Now, she thought of a girl who comes to the library at the prison. Her name is Liberty, and she figured maybe she could ask for help because she was in there for hacking, and maybe she could help her figure out where the call came from, where she was when the call came, to be able to find her daughter. So when she did have that conversation with Liberty, she said she would try to find out or whatever, but she didn't. She didn't have the means. She was in prison to do it herself. So I guess she had to reach out to somebody to help. So she, is now before this all happened, we see where she goes to this house to see a psychiatrist. And this was under the guise of having an appointment. But really, when she went there, she had another reason for going there. So there's a connection between the house that she went to for this appointment belongs to Cleo. So now we see where their lives are involved somehow because the mom, Frankie, went to see Cleo. Her daughter, whose real name is Nellie, but she's going by Patience, is living in the attic of the gallery, which belongs to Jude. And then she works at the facility and is friends with their mom, Edith. So, yeah, there's a connection there that she doesn't really know about. At the same time, we're being told a story about this baby who disappeared, went missing. And this was a baby that Cleo had. And at that point, she was married. Now, of course, with the baby going missing, that kind of ruined her relationship. So she's by herself. And so they never really found that baby. So, at this point, we're wondering, at least I was wondering as the reader, is the baby dead, or is Patience / Nellie the baby? And did Frankie steal the baby? So, at the beginning of the book, when she went to go see Cleo, she wanted to confess something, But when she started to make her confession, Cleo's phone rang and she turned it off, and then she was trying to start again, and then the phone rang again, and then the house phone was ringing. And so that was when she was getting calls to notify that her mom is missing. And so she didn't end up confessing to her whatever it was that she was going to confess, but she did find some art at her house, which her daughter made paper art. And so she knew there's a connection with Cleo and her daughter. And so she found newfound hope to find her daughter. So even though she didn't get what to do what she wanted to do, she found hope there because of the art. So we follow these characters to, I guess, figure out, who killed the care manager, what the deal is, and what angle is going on with Cleo, the dynamic with Cleo and the mom and Jude. And we have this police detective who is hell-bent on finding the truth. We also find that a female police detective, her grandma was at the care facility, and her grandma was the one who had told Edith that, they were killing, that Lady Joy was involved in some sinister stuff, involved in some patients who were dying there in the facility. So Frankie had to go back to have a talk with Cleo, and they had to hash some things out. Now, when Edith found out that Patience was arrested, she was not having it. She couldn't allow her to go to jail, so she went to the police department, and so she was going to tell them the truth, whatever the truth was, because we really didn't know at that point when she went to the police station who had really, killed that care manager. And so Edith, she has heart problems, and so after that whole debacle, she ended up in the hospital. And so she didn't really have a whole lot of time to live. That's what the doctor was saying. But when Cleo went to the hospital to visit her, she was still alive. And at this point, I was hoping that maybe, it was a ploy. Maybe things were going to turn around because, when they were there, she was, when the kids were there, she was like, hooked up to all these tubes. And I thought, okay, well, maybe they're making it seem like she's dying so they could confess to something and the police would run in and arrest whoever it was or whatever. But really, that wasn't the case, which is kind of sad. But in her final actions, she was able to clear Patience, and we find out, which when I found this out, I was doing my daughter's hair, and I was like, oh my gosh. She was like, what is it? What is it? But we find out that towards the end, the relationship between Cleo, Frankie, and Patience. And I had a feeling that there was something there, and a part of it was right, but not the whole thing. And when I found that out, I was like, oh my gosh. Also, the missing baby, you wouldn't believe how this baby came to be missing, which was crazy in itself. And the betrayal in that, I was just like, oh my gosh, who does this? Yeah. So at the end was a shocker for me. So I enjoyed this one. I know I give a lot of 4 stars, but this one at the end had me at the end, and I have to give it 4 stars. I'm a sucker for a twisty ending. But if you have read or listened to this book, let me know your thoughts. Until next time.